So I've been asked to talk about one of the most common choices families have to make, and that's paying for college. And the choice you have is an Ivy League versus a state college. And we want to show you how the choice you make is really going to be impactful and how much wealth your family creates. So let's do some of the calculations. An Ivy League school or a private college cost on average about $50,000 a year. So if you attend college for 4 years, that's $200,000. Whereas a state college on average is going to cost about $25,000 a year. For 4 years, that's $100,000. So the cost difference is $100,000. The state college is going to cost half as much as the Ivy League or the private school. Now we'd like you to invest the difference, the $100,000, in a growth mutual fund. We keep talking about 12% return. We'd like you to invest that for the child until retirement. And we can sort of play that guessing game like we did with the penny. So how much do you think you'll have? So the next slide shows us that if you take this savings from investing in going to a state college, at age 22, you're going to have that $100,000. With 12% return on investment, we already know from the rule of 72 that the money is going to double every 6 years. So at age 28, you've got $200,000. At age 34, you've got $400,000. And you keep doubling, doubling, doubling. So at age 58, you see they've got $6.4 million. And at age 64, retirement, you have $12.8 million. Nice number. So at retirement, we can take it one step further. If you want to take out, like one of the sisters did, just take out the interest, 12%, you would have $1.5 million per year without even touching your principal. Probably should repeat that. You could just take out 12% and you've got 1.5 a year, every year for your retirement. And then the other beautiful thing is that you can pass this on to your children who also can take $1.5 million out a year and still not touch the principal. So that's what we mean by creating multi-generational wealth. I'll stick with this other slide for just a second. So when we're talking about the college, I wanted to speak to some people really feel, we talk about why do you go to college? And some people go for, have 2 kids, so some people go to broaden their horizons. Some people go to find their passion. Parents kind of don't like that. But the most common reason people go to college is to learn a marketable skill so they can get a great job and earn a comfortable living. But a lot of people feel the best way to get these great jobs is to go to the brand name school, the Ivy League, the private schools. And then the kids buy into that too. They say, Mom, Dad, I really feel like I've got to go to Wesleyan or I've got to go to Yale to get this dream job. And I wanted you to stay on this slide because to me, this is the dream, $12.8 million. So I don't know of any Ivy League school or private school that's going to get you a job that pays you $12.8 million more than you would get from a state school. So we'll go to the next slide because in our area where we live, a lot of people, we just talked about going to a state college for 4 years and the savings you would get. Now in our area, a lot of people start private school from kindergarten. It's a thing. So the average cost of private school in the primary years is about $15,000 a year. So we said, what about this scenario? If you invest that $15, again, we love 12% return on investment. If you invest that from when the child is in first grade to age 22, so that's about 16 years of investing. We came up with that 16 years because grade 1 through 12 is 12 years. And then we threw in the 4 years of college where we want you to obviously take the public option. So you put the kids on the yellow bus all through high school. You don't pay anything. You take that $15,000 that you would have invested in a private school and you invest it at 12% for 16 years because you've added in the 4 years from college. That comes out to $641,000. So now we can play the guessing game. You're starting at age 22. We'll go to the next slide. This number is going to be ginormous because before we started at 100,000 when you just did the savings that you'd get from a going to a state college for 4 years. Now we're talking about saving money from kindergarten on up. So at age 22, we've already showed you, we kind of rounded it. So instead of 641, we just said 600,000. We know the time to double because we've already done the rule of 72. You're going to have $1.2 million after 6 years. So that student is now 28 and he has $1.2 million at age 34. It's doubled again. They have $2.4 million. I mean, it's nice to reference that first slide, the reality check, where only 2% at retirement had over $1 million. And here you've got a 34-year-old with $2.4 million. And so you just keep going again to age retirement, age 64, you have this ginormous number, $76.8 million. It's unbelievable, it's staggering, and that's why my dad showed the slide of the bumblebee. It shouldn't fly, this shouldn't be, but it is. So maybe this is a good time to address the naysayers and say this is impossible, or I don't have $15,000 to invest in kindergarten, or I'm not going to. And that may be true. Maybe this example is not for you, but the fact of the matter is a lot of people do that. And we know that's true because these schools are full and there's actually waiting lists. So the other factor is that just like the three sisters, parents make education a priority, so they find a way to pay. So when your daughter gets into Spelman, you find a way to pay that tuition. When your toddler gets into the Friends School, the prestigious Friends School, you find a way to pay. How do you pay? You liquidate your assets. You take money out of your investments, and that's how we ended up with that sawtooth that my dad referred to earlier. You borrow money from, or you use money that your grandparents or parents would have given you, or maybe like one of the sisters, you get a second job. But we really want to emphasize in this presentation that we just really believe people don't know that this is an option. Because if you knew $76 million was at stake, you might make a different choice. And that's what this presentation is all about. Another aside, this is actually very personal because I have been the product of that public education, and so has my brother, and it's worked out very well for us. We're very happy. But I am not the recipient right now of, well, I'm not 64, but I should be somewhere here. I should have $19 million. And my dad talked about good advice, so he's figured this all out. So we're on this exponential curve. We're not quite at that 38 million, but our plan is to get there. So I'll be passing it back, I believe, now to my brother, my big brother, who will be talking about another critical choice that really will impact how much wealth you create for your family. Dr. Herbert James II.
Hello, my name is Herbert I. James Jr., and in this segment we'd like to clarify a common mistake when using life insurance policies as an investment strategy. If families are fortunate enough to have enough money to pay their daily bills and can put money into an insurance policy, they may have the choice of using either whole life or term life insurance. There's a big difference between the two when it comes to your return on investment. To define, term life insurance is essentially the simplest of the two, where each year a certain amount is paid and the benefactor, who would be the children, are guaranteed a certain amount of money, say $1 million policy, if the policyholder were to die. This would occur in 20 or 30 years out. After 30 years or the term policy, no money would be received if the person were to live past those years. Whole life, on the other hand, actually pays no matter when the person dies. However, it does need to be realized that the cost of whole life is literally 10 times the amount of term life. For example, for a 50-year-old gentleman, term life would cost $900 a year versus whole life would cost $9,000 a year. So for $1 million policy, in a term life, the equivalent would be somewhere between $100,000 or maybe even less, $50,000. This can be a big difference when someone is planning not only for the long-term financial stability of their family, but also for the short term. For example, let's take our one example of an individual who is 50 years old and has 2 children. If this gentleman makes $100,000 a year, he has $10,000 from investments, and his pension is $10,000. He has a choice of buying whole life or term insurance. What might be considered bad advice is to take out a whole life insurance. Again, for the same amount of money, for a term life, a whole life will be much less. Here in this particular scenario, we'll call it $50,000, meaning if he were to unfortunately have a premature death, his benefactors would receive $50,000. That family would also have $10,000 from their pension, and their investment income would be $10,000. Now that $50,000, if they were smart, they would go ahead and invest that whole amount. So that $50,000 and an 8% return would give them about $4,000. So in this scenario, this family, which has, I understand, two children, are receiving $24,000 to maintain their lifestyle, where prior to the death, they were living off $100,000, and this would be a big hit. Now, if the family had chosen term life at the same price, the return at death would be $1 million. So we'd have, yes, they'd continue to receive the pension because of the death. The investment would give $10,000 as well. But the term life of $1 million at 8% would return $80,000, giving them $100,000 of income, which would maintain what they were using in the past. So here, this is a good example of how a proper choice of investment, specifically using term insurance versus whole life, would be beneficial for the family for financial stability in the short term. One may say, well, in the long term, because whole life does always promote, hey, you're going to receive a guaranteed return and some dividends. You should note that these returns, although guaranteed, are low, that the whole life will be a larger amount of money down the road. But keep in mind that because the term life scenario isn't paying out that much, if that person were to take that same amount of money and invest it, they'd be far ahead than the returns that are offered by the whole life, where whatever insurance company is essentially investing that money for you and taking a certain cut. So your total return is not as good as if you were doing it by yourself, period. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the program.